Hey guys! Today I'm going to be reviewing the Stillman and Birn Zeta series sketchbook for you today. So real quick, let's talk about the details. I have the 8x10-inch softcover version of the sketchbook. The Zeta series sketchbook is extra heavyweight, which means the paper is 180 pounds. This has 26 sheets, which is 52 pages front and back. And the sketchbook also features smooth white paper. So we'll get into more of how all of those details affected my drawing experience overall, but I just wanted to kind of lay out those statistics for you before we got started. I also thought you might like to see the sketchbook compared as far as size goes next to some others that I've used. So specifically my Mosseri sketchbook, which you can see is smaller, and my 9x12 Canson sketchbook, which is larger. So this one sat right in between those two. And this sketchbook is also bound in such a way with like individual sets of pages together, like their signatures, and it allows the paper to sit really flat so that you can either draw on both sides of the paper or just keep it open and flat while you're drawing, so you don't have to worry about like that spiral binding in the way. But my favorite feature about this sketchbook was how watercolors dried on the paper. I mean, I know it varies depending on the kind of paint you use, but the texture is just so beautiful to look at. Stillman and Birn has a series of mixed media sketchbooks. You can see there are 6 of them here. The Zeta series sketchbook is the first one that I've tried, but I have the beta? Yeah, the beta is my next sketchbook, so I'm really excited to try that one out. The beta series, the other one is hardbound, it's a hardcover, and this one, as you can see, is soft. So I thought it would be cool to show you a little bit of the sketching for the piece I wanted to show you, just as an example of different mediums in the sketchbook, because of course I can't do just one medium in a sketchbook review, so we're just gonna throw everything at it like we did for the Mosseri sketchbook, because I thought that was really fun. And starting out, of course, I'm sketching with my col-erase colored pencil in vermilion, which I found to be my favorite color to sketch in. I really enjoy that. And because this paper is white and smooth, I found that it's very easy to sketch on and to see my lines. More of an ivory color, I feel like my orange lines, which is like my favorite color to sketch in, wouldn't show up as well. So it was nice to get to enjoy that. The first thing we're going to throw at this paper are Copic markers, which are the big bleed through culprits, and at the end I'll show you how these bled. There is a little bit, but it's not, you know, I think it's standard for what you can expect from like a good mixed media sketchbook. It's not marker paper, but I still enjoy using Copic markers on here. I've been doing this sort of feathery blending technique for like dramatic skin shading with Copic markers lately, and by lately I mean like twice in my whole life, but it's been really fun. And this paper being so nice and smooth and white, the colors really pop off the page and the marker strokes look really nice. Next up, I used watercolor, and I hope you guys can see kind of some of the texture of how my paint is already sitting on this paper. It almost looks like it's just kind of like sliding around and gliding a bit on the paper, and you'll have to decide if that seems like something you would enjoy. Now, it's not that the paint doesn't stick to the paper, you know, that can vary depending on the variety of paint you're using and the binders and things like that, but it just kind of glides smoothly on this paper. I guess I should tell you, overall, this has by far been my favorite sketchbook to work in. Like I haven't even had it for a month and it's full already. It's done. I'm already moving on to the next sketchbook, which is another Stillman and Birn. But yeah, it was so much fun to work on. And the size ended up being like perfect for me. The 9x12 Canson I found to be a little unwieldy and difficult to kind of carry around sometimes. It's still really great, and I prefer that size for larger things like figure drawings or bigger sketching practice things. I really like that size. And the Mosseri sketchbook, generally I just found to be too small. Even if I'm just doing a portrait or something like that, I like working a little bit bigger. So this 8x10 size, it's a little bit more square than like a 7x10, but I found it to be awesome and super enjoyable. Hopefully at this part you can see a little bit of how those hard lines of how the watercolor dries, and of course that varies depending on how much you blend out your colors, but I loved it on this. I loved, especially in this part with the eyes, I love those hard watercolor edges. When you can find materials that just make your drawing and painting experience more pleasurable and more pleasing to do, you're more likely to create more art, and that is an amazing, beautiful thing. So that's definitely how I felt thundering through this sketchbook. So far, in my limited experience with Stillman and Birn, which is limited to this sketchbook and the beginning of my next sketchbook, which I'm currently working on, they seem like really nice quality sketchbooks, and you do pay more for them. This sketchbook costs more than the Canson Mixed Media, but less, I think, than the Mossery sketchbook. So the Mossery sketchbook, I think I paid like at normal price, I think is like $25 or something like that, 25 US dollars. And this one was 22, something like that. So it's really close in price to the Mossery sketchbook. And this is larger, and it was so much fun. In terms of this piece, this is actually when I started to struggle, because I laid in like these really tight marker lines, and I felt like it was really refined, kind of, I guess, and nice looking, and I was really enjoying it. But then when I started to lay in the watercolors, they were a lot looser, and I started to kind of lose my focus for this piece. Like I wasn't really sure if I wanted it to be a looser thing or if I wanted it to be a more concise, elegant sort of thing. And I know I didn't mention this before. For those of you who may already have recognized this character, this is Solus from Dragon Age Inquisition, who I drew on this channel. I colored a long time ago, and I guess you can watch it if you want, but it's really, really old and not very good anymore. I don't know. I don't want to call this a draw this again video, but man, I'm gonna have to do that soon for some really old piece of art. I'll find a really old piece of art and I'll draw it again for you guys. Anyway, Solus, I have like a love-hate relationship with that grumpy elf. So if you know the game, you will understand what I mean, especially if you chose Solus as a romance option, which I did. And it's like every time I play an elf or a mage, it just ends in heartbreak. Hopefully someone out there can relate to this experience. It just happens to me like literally every single time in any Dragon Age game. Anyway, after watercolors, I moved on to gouache, and I have recently been kind of finding like a new love for gouache. Kind of. I've been trying really hard, but a big part of that has just been in how I'm using gouache. So you can see that little plastic bowl next to me, and I was just using it straight out of the tube instead of dry, and watering it down, of course, a little bit. And the matte finish, the opacity of gouache, when you can get it to the right texture and the right consistency, is so nice. And this is also when I started to decide that I was just gonna let the piece be a bit looser. And when I actually made that decision, like when I started going in with that lighter turquoise, and I was like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna let this be looser, I just had so much more fun with this piece, because I had to walk away from this thing for days at a time. And once I got to the point with the gouache where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let this loosen up and it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be fun, it just changed the whole drawing experience for me. And then I went in with my colored pencils on top to add a bit more color back into the marker area, because of course once I added the contrast from the watercolors, like the darker values, then the skin looked too light, which I kind of like for this character. It's a little bit of an ethereal, you know, glowing sort of look, which I really, really like. But then I just wanted to go in and add some more texture to his skin without ruining that glowing quality. And also you'll see there I'm kind of blending my colored pencils and just like rubbing them with my fingers, and that works really well on this smooth paper as well. I was really timid about taking my Pentel pocket brush pen thing here and adding black, because I was like, no, I want to define my values with my watercolors and I don't want to cop out and use black lines, but I did. And ultimately it didn't really feel like a cop out, because I love the expressive brush strokes that you can get from a pen like this, and it was really fun. And I know I'm going to be using this thing a lot more like come Inktober, which I'm hoping to participate in, and Oh gosh. And then, ooh, right around here, like when I did that little tuft above his ear, I saw that the way that the pocket brush pen like lays over the gouache, and I was like, ooh, that's nice. So it was actually fun because I got to kind of realize that there were some things that I really enjoyed. So here's that really nice gouache texture, which I found to be very pleasant and really nice to touch. You should touch gouache sometime, dry gouache. Like, don't rub your fingers in wet gouache, but just like touch dry gouache. It feels really nice. Don't touch it too much because it might rub off. But yeah, anyway, it's just so nice and it's so matte. And at first I wasn't sure if I would like that. But anyway, here's the bleed through. So you can kind of see the colors do bleed through a bit, but I didn't have any issues with it kind of like going on to the next page. It just did standard Copic things. So these are all the materials I used for this, as well as this giant watercolor palette that's not full that I'm gonna review for you guys soon. And I guess I'll just, okay, here looks good. Yes, there you go. So, and I will leave links to all of the materials I used in the description. And thank you guys so much for checking out this video. If you click on any of those links and use them to purchase anything, like you could click on the sketchbook link and then buy, like, you know, I don't know, surprise eggs. I don't know. What do people buy on the internet? Anyway, any of that supports me. So thank you guys for checking out this video. See you next time.